Hi there, welcome to Games Over Qualia. My name is Devon. These videos work in 3 different parts. First, you send me your game and you fill out this form about your intended experience. Second, I'll play the game completely blind and then I explain what I think the game was trying to do. Third, I compare my blind experience with your intended experience and we'll see if they align or if they don't. If you've ever played Inside, you'll remember this part that has this kind of rhythm. You end up getting dropped into this line and you have to act like one of the zombies in order to fit in order to make sure that you get past this part. So as you go forward and you're following all these people, you're trying not to break the rhythm. And if you don't do it right, then you're gonna get caught and that's the end of that part and you have to try again. It's really interesting to me because during that part of the game, even though it's a little type of rhythm section and it's very different from the rest of the game, it still feels like it belongs. Now, what's interesting about this is that this other game, this game that was submitted to me today called Sneaky. Sneaky is a game that is a stealth-like type of game. It uses stealth mechanics, but it doesn't feel like a stealth game to me. When I play this game, it feels like that little rhythm section. I don't feel stealthy. I don't feel like a stealth person. I don't feel like I'm outwitting anybody. It feels like what I'm trying to do is go through a specific sequence of moves. Why this game feels that way to me is because when I have my character go through this area, you can see actually one of the first puzzles here. We have a guard that is doing some really crazy looking movements around here, and you have to get past them. Now, the only way to get past them is by committing their movements to memory so that you can go on the opposite sides of wherever they are. It feels like there's only one way to get past them, and it feels like the developer is trying to tell me to go into that very specific way. In the relatively small levels that are in here, that's what happens over and over. There's a specific type of solution that you are supposed to do. The game asks you to carry it out in a very specific way. So typically when I play some sort of stealth game, I'm usually thinking about it in terms of puzzles. It depends on the game, of course, all games are different. In Metal Gear Solid, for example, you're trying to avoid being spotted. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, where you're trying to shoot out lights to make sure that you're not seen. A Thief, where you can put out fires with your water arrows. You have to be really quiet. I'm hiding from guards and places that they can't see. I'm taking advantage of noises. I'm throwing objects in certain areas. I'm trying to get them away from me. I'm trying to fool them, right? It feels like I'm trying to be smart. Whereas in this game, it does not feel like I'm trying to be smart. Now, again, with Playdead's Inside, if we look back at that game, it doesn't really make me feel smart either. The reason why I think those stealth sections works so well is because there's a whole lot of narrative going on inside that game. It's kind of using stealth as like a story moment kind of thing. And when I play those types of, rhythm-oriented sections or very designed-heavy sections, that feels good to me because of the context that I understand the game inside of. This game, Sneaky, when I play the game, I'm expecting to outsmart the guards. I'm not expecting to follow a very specific rhythm. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's just something that I felt when I played the game. And I imagine most people who play this game would feel the same way. They'll think about this game as a stealth game because that is what you're doing. And so they'll compare it to other stealth games that they've played in the past and realize that this game is not like those ones. And they might feel bored and they might feel frustrated like I did because the game isn't respecting me in the same way that those other stealth games have. I got very frustrated if I died, not because I failed to outwit everybody, but because I failed the system, because I failed the designed solution. And that can work as long as the game makes it known that this is the expectation going in, then I'm okay with that kind of thing. Okay, so that being said, we're going to move on to the developer's intentions and see what it was that they had intended with this game. This is the part of the video where I ask for a donation. Thank you so much to the Patreon members I have right now. There's also a Buy Me a Coffee if you wish to not be a Patreon member, or you can join as a YouTube member. That being said, thank you so much for your donations, and let's continue with the video. So my first question was, what were you hoping the player would feel while playing your game? This dev had an answer, but I need to paraphrase a little bit because it's a little hard to read this word for word. I'm going to go ahead and put their answer on the screen so you can read it verbatim, but I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. I wanted this player to feel a sense of dread and stress, the sudden turn of events when the alarm starts to be surprising and exciting. My second question was, why did you choose this experience? This dev answered, the art style used plays on light and shadow with simple shapes, which allowed me to not have to actually do the art, which I'm bad at. This in turn pushed me towards stealth-based experiences seen in the final game. My third question was, were there specific moments, mechanics, or ideas that you built around that emotional goal? This dev answered, the 3 key moments I feel are the following. When the player gets excited for the first time and gets shot, it's a surprisingly powerful and violent sound and visual effect. This seemed to have consistently instilled fear and stress into the player. When the player kills the golden enemy, turning on the red alarm, this is the highlight of the game and keeps the experience interesting and progressing, changing the feeling, etc. when you get out into the well-lit and calm exterior with the alarm sound getting lower and lower, calming and satisfying end. I also want to point out this was my first and only game that I've ever completed. Nowadays, most of my design free time is spent in level design, making maps for existing games rather than proper game design. Still, although it is small, I still consider this game to be a good and well thought out experience, which I'm proud of. That is great. Thank you for those specific answers. Those were great. So I want to talk about each answer individually. So that first one, you said that you wanted this feeling of dress. I wanted the player to feel a sense of dread and stress and that sudden turn of situation, sudden turn of events. The alarm was certainly something that did surprise me, I think, a little bit, but that feeling of dread and stress I never had while playing this game. I did maybe have it a little bit because of it's a different type of tension though. For example, in Thief, I have very, very high tension whenever there is a guard coming at me and I'm thinking I might not be in the right amount of shadow, right? Maybe I'm too close to him, right? That kind of thing where I might have failed at what it was that I was trying to do. The tension that I felt in this game was much more like the tension that I feel in those types of bounds maps. I played these bounds maps kind of inspired game a while ago called Rat Race. And inside of Rat Race, you're controlling a rat that is going through all of these explosion gates, basically the bounds maps, if you've ever played those. When I'm using the rat to get to certain grates and everything, there's a high amount of tension building up because trying to click on each of these grates at a very specific time, it feels really difficult to do because there's a lot of skill involved and my execution is on the line. That's the type of tension that's building up in me. It feels like if I fail this, then I'm gonna have to do all of this again. That's the type of tension that I felt here. So stress and dread a little bit, but mostly because of my own skills and not necessarily because I didn't want to get caught. Your third answer, you said when the player gets caught for the first time and gets shot, it's a surprisingly powerful and violent sound and visual effect. This seems to have consistently instilled fear and stress into the player. This is really interesting to me because yes, that did happen to me. When I got shot in this game, it scared me, like literally. But I think the reason why it scared me is because of contrast. This is what I would call a jump scare as opposed to a release. Now I know those things are kind of similar. Usually in a game like Five Nights at Freddy's or Slender the 8 Pages, you get these jump scares that happen. It's a build up and then it's a release. When people talk about cheap jump scares, when they use that word cheap, I think a cheap jump scare is one that just relies on contrast. If you think about those screamer videos, right? If you're watching really, really closely in a video, everything's really calm. When suddenly something jumps out at you, that's not tension and fear, that's just taking you by surprise. Unfortunately, that's how I felt in Sneaky when I was playing the game because there's no sound effects in this game at all. Suddenly there's a very loud and violent gunshot. I'm just like, whoa, like it just takes me by surprise because it's so contrast heavy. The visual effect in here I think is kind of cool that you have that kind of RGB split that happens. I think that's kind of a neat identifier to show the player that they've been shot. But the gunshot, I think it's just more about that contrast. It feels like it comes out of nowhere. I don't really feel tension build up and then release. I feel a sudden scare, right? That's what it feels like to me. When the player kills the golden enemy and then there's a red alarm, to me that felt like, yes, it was a turning point of events, but it felt like it was just the point of which the game now becomes something different. And it was weird because the game didn't become anything different. The red light now blinks, and you have this alarm sound effect that's happening, and the red light kind of covers up where the cones are shown, so it feels a little more stressful when you're trying to get into areas and you're trying to see where the enemies are looking. To me, it didn't really affect my gameplay all that much. Really what it did to me is it made the structure like feel good inside of my head. It was kind of a context thing. Because of that alarm and everything, that time where I'm escaping at the very end and the alarm gets quieter and quieter, that actually does feel good. That actually feels like I'm someone who's escaping something. I think what you're doing here is a very good sense of very minimal storytelling, very good structure. I'm gonna take a wild guess here. This is conjecture on my part. Please don't be offended. This is just my guess, but I'm thinking that when you did these types of light and shadow effects, that making your gameplay based off of those light and shadow effects kind of made you create the type of very specific puzzle solution gameplay that you had here, meaning that I don't think stealth was in your game design to begin with, but rather was an effect of something else. And that would make more sense because I don't feel like I'm playing a stealth game. I feel like I'm playing a keep in the shadows game. That's what it felt like to me. So thank you, Trivial, for submitting this game. And if you are not this dev and you have a game, you can submit it. There's a link in the description. Or you can join our Discord where you talk with a lot of other game designers. There's a lot of people in there that love talking about game design and are really good at giving advice. We have really good discussions in there, really good stuff. It's incredible the amount of difference that I have between games on this channel. I think it's just so cool that it comes from all parts of the internet. Last week we talked about Man Boobs the minigame, which was like this big Unreal Engine kind of 3D slop fest, and then now we have this minimal 2D top-down looking stealth game, and this game is like barely published on itch.io, which is really interesting.